But he is working out. The most important muscle.
Where does Zach go to school?
Very local at
Hey, neighbor.
Nazareth.
I live in Moore Township.
So we got
Where do you go to
Nazareth,
school?
Emmaus.
My name? Judy Legal.
Oh, I thought you were someone else. Hi.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Miss Rosalind. Nice to meet you.
Emmaus. Very cool. What year at Emmaus?
Ryan.
Ooh, what's
You
what?
know Ronnie Rolson?
Volleyball and track and field.
Cool.
You know Ronald Rolson? He's a
Where do you
genius.
go?
Yeah.
Liberty?
He is really
Awesome.
smart.
Very cool. Are you
My
going to be a
friend's son.
senior? Going to be a junior? Very cool. All right. So we got Nazareth, Liberty, and Emmaus. I've worked with teams over at Emmaus, so you may see me walking down the hallways with their football team, swimming team, all these things.
All the
Okay.
teams. Man's got all the teams. Cool. So why are we here today? I like to think that if you want to play the game, you got to know the rules, right? So in terms of recruiting, I remember being around your ages and going to one of these and just learning the difference between D1 sports, D2 and D3, and just hearing about SATs. And remember, like our coach was he played quarterback at Penn State, and then we had someone who played at ran track at Bloomsburg, and they said the difference, like if you want to kind of be really busy and aggressive schedule in D1, that's what you're gonna get. If you want something a little bit more laid back time, that's what you get at a D2 sports. If you want the scholarship and the responsibility, what comes with it, the cost, and now like the game's changed since then, so we can try to talk about what it takes to get you there, right? I was lucky, like a lot of athletes, probably aren't in programs like I went to. I went to something called Upper Bound. They taught me about the SAT. They taught me about the clearinghouse. That's how I learned about the clearinghouse. I had a great high school coach who made my highlight tape and sent it out. I was raised by a single mom, didn't make it out of ninth grade. She never played a sport. I was very lucky. So, you guys could rub your fuzzy rabbit foot and pray that you're lucky as well, but I like to try to prepare you versus just relying on luck. And most of you guys have been with me working out, so you know that we're going to handle the performance side. You're going to pass the eye test. We're going to do everything we can to get your numbers where they need to be. But the other things that I try to dabble on in our time are, where's your mind at, right? What are you doing about the SAT? And do you actually know how much this stuff costs? So we'll start with Megan, Mind of the Athlete, sports psychologist. Give her a round.
Nice to meet you guys. So we have, are you Becca? I'm Central, so I know. So I hope that you can at least listen a little bit. All right. Where are you at?
I go to the Lawrence School.
Okay. And then you're Becca too? All right. So we got Becca, Lawrence, and then congratulations on your commitment to UPenn, which I have heard
He's a
of.
Lawrenceville graduate.
All right. Well, congratulations. It's a huge deal. Very, very cool, that Ivy League. And so I am Dr. Megan. I am a sports psychologist. What I do is I work with athletes on ultimately the structure, the part of our body that mediates everything you are able to do physically. If any of you have ever had a situation where your practices, your workouts were awesome, and then you got to a game and it was not the same situation, that's what I do. And so I help athletes like you ladies and gentlemen here not only perform consistently over time, but perform at your peak and at your best. Because our brain is that organ that really controls all of the things. And so the marathon, and I do appropriately call it a marathon, that is recruiting, because it's a long process. And so today, in addition to talking about some of the college financial piece along with the SAT and the grades and that component of it, Andre really put a good symposium together. So we're really hitting on a couple different things, from the psychology of recruiting to then the financial aspect of the recruiting and college, along with the grades you need to get there. Because if the grades aren't there, then anything Sam or I have to say is, well, it's not really going to be as relevant if we don't have the grades to support it. So I have a couple rules for recruiting that I like to go over with athletes and their parents, because it's a really long process, and it's a process that can be confusing. It's a process that there's a lot of stuff out there. And so I like sharing with you guys a lot of the tips, some of the pointers for you to take forward as you, wherever you are at in this journey, whether you are starting in the process of recruiting. I know we have some almost seniors here, so you guys are probably a little bit further along. But I want to go over just 5 rules, 5 commandments, 5 thoughts for you guys to think about in terms of the recruiting process. And so the first one is ultimately to know the numbers. And the reason why I feel this is so important is because you as athletes, you live in an athletic environment. I would imagine the majority of your friends are also athletes. Also the people you follow on social media are probably athletes. And so all of a sudden when we live in this world, it seems like everybody is getting recruited and everybody's going to go to college to play a sport and everybody's going to get a scholarship because that's what you surround yourself with because you're an athlete and we choose to have friends that are similar to us with similar interests. And so it then all of a sudden seems like literally everybody and their mom is getting recruited and everybody and their mom is getting a scholarship. And so starting off, it's ultimately we need to know the facts about what that is. And so gentlemen, this is your slide right here. And then ladies, we will go next. But ultimately, the actual numbers in terms of the amount of athletes that get recruited, more or less get a scholarship to play college athletics is a little bit different than what America would like you to think it is. Because it sounds like everybody's doing it, so many people are there, there's scholarships all over the place. However, as you can see here, the scholarship numbers are pretty low. In all, at a max, it's 12% for lacrosse, but that's Division 1 through 3. And so when I like showing these numbers, not to be a downer, not to be like a negative person, but it's ultimately we need to go into the recruiting process knowing as much information as possible. And if it seems like everybody's getting these scholarships and that is the golden ticket to college, we're going to be a little bit surprised. And so in terms of the female side, you'll see the numbers aren't much different outside of ice hockey because it's not a super popular sport. So if you're a female that plays ice hockey, awesome. However, the overall averages of individual athletes that do have the opportunity to get recruited and get a scholarship and continue their athletic career in college is overall pretty low. There are actually only 6 sports that you can get a full ride for. And I think that that's something that not many people really actually think about because we see, okay, we're going to be getting, all this money for school, but what do you guys think is the percentage of actual high school athletes who are awarded a sports scholarship to an NCAA university? What do you guys think? Yeah. 1%? Oh, no, it's a tiny bit higher, but you're close though. I like the Price is Right method. $1. So what do you guys think? It's a very little bit bigger than 1%. What's 1 plus 1? 2. Oh my gosh, who said it? All right, Becca. Okay, we'll give it to you. And so 2%, only 2% of college athletes actually will receive money to play their sport in college. And out of that, not many of them are full rides. So the average athletic scholarship, what do you guys think that is? Any guesses to what the average amount of money is you as an athlete, if you are trying to get recruited, trying to get money to help you support the financial piece of school, how much of this is actually going to come from your athletics?
Per year.
This is per year. It's close. It's $11,000. So on average, the amount of a scholarship is going to be $11,000. And that's average. And so there's ones that are lower, there are some that are higher, but that's the average amount. Because coaches, if I'm a coach and on my team I have 25 scholarships, that doesn't mean that I have 25 scholarships available for the freshman class. That means that I have 25 scholarships and that includes everybody I already have on my team. And so maybe this upcoming year, I have 4 scholarships, but I need 6 or 7 or 8 people. And so those scholarships get divided up and they get broken down to an average of $11,000 per athlete. Like I mentioned before, there are only 6 sports in which you can get a full ride. We got football, men's and women's basketball, women's gymnastics, tennis for women, and women's volleyball. And that's at the Division I level. And so it's an all or nothing situation. But other than that, you're looking at a partial scholarship, and this is where we are averaging out. And so, like I said, I don't share these numbers with you to be a total negative Nancy. I like like sharing the numbers because I think the more information we have, the better off we are. And living in an athletic world, it can really be and seem like everybody's getting scholarships and everybody's getting a lot of money to go to school. Second thing is that ultimately the process of recruiting is a marathon. I have some, and I know that the NCAA is really tightening a lot of their rules about this and how far in advance athletes can commit, how far in advance coaches can be talking to them. I actually have an athlete who, as a 7th grader, made a verbal commitment to a university for gymnastics. We were 13 years old, not even. But so now they're working towards that. But even now with the rules and the laws as they stand, the recruiting process is overall, on average, about a 3-year process from you starting to research your schools, from starting to create the profiles, from starting to connect with coaches, from doing the exchange back and forth with coaches. And so it's a very long process, or it can be a long process. And so sometimes athletes that I've worked with get into it and they thought that it was going to be a lot shorter, or they at the end of it are just drained because it keeps going. And so as you go through the recruiting process, just know it is a marathon, and that's totally, it just is what it is. We're able to then, as long as we're mentally prepared for the fact that this isn't going to be an overnight situation, this isn't going to be a problem that has a resolution in like a month, then at least we're mentally prepared to know, okay, this is a gradual, one step at a time. It's going to take some time until we get there. The third piece goes into, we are no longer a we. You as an athlete in high school, living at home, maybe it's grandparents, maybe it's parents, aunt and uncles, but you have that family support system and they're there, and a lot of the decisions are made amongst everybody or with everybody. However, when you go to college, things are a little bit different. And that is going to be something that coaches, as they are recruiting you, are going to pay attention. And so I have a little video. You guys may have seen this from this year, but I think this very much encapsulates kind of the message that I'm sending a little bit. So I want to share with you guys a quick little video, assuming our volume is on point here, which the speaker this big it should be.
You got, so, Jacob, you're going to Florida. Who just got up and left there, and to your right? Who got up and left?
Oh, that was my mom.
And why did she walk out and leave?
I don't know. I don't know exactly why she walked out, but yeah, I don't know.
Jacob, we saw her wearing the Alabama sweater there. What were those conversations like with her about where you were going to school?
We had a lot of conversations back and forth about where I should go to school at, but it was like God led me and my gut, and God led me in the direction that my heart desired. So I followed along with it. I couldn't go with my mind. I wanted to go with my heart. So
his mom was so upset with the decision that in this like nationally televised thing, she got up and walked away. And so as a parent, the roles shift, where parents are obviously, and aunts and uncles and grandparents are still the #1 fans, as depicted with all the Olympic athletes, right? That's always like the mom commercials, the dad commercials, but the role changes. And so as an athlete, as you are choosing amongst the schools that you would like to attend, it is your decision, because you are going to be the one that is waking up at 5 in the morning to go lift. You're going to be the one that has to travel. You're going to be the one that has to live 4 years on a campus. It's not going to be that person at home that's egging you on to go somewhere else. And so it's really starting that separation from the we of this is like, we are really happy about this high school and we are so excited about this tournament team, to me. And that is actually language as you are on college visits or talking with coaches, they will listen for that. So if there is a parent there in your meeting and they're like, we are so excited about X, Y, or Z, and the athlete's standing there maybe chiming in every now and again, that is a big red flag for that coach, because that coach is recruiting you. They are not recruiting mom and dad and possible phone calls and different things that may happen. And so as a parent, as an athlete, it's around this age that we start that separation process. And so it's no longer a we when you make this decision. It is a decision that you make because you're the one that is going to be living those 4 years while you are there. And so having that parent support, having that family support is so helpful. It just starts to change and evolve as you get older, where your decisions are becoming more of your own, but you know that that support system is ultimately still there. Fourth point in terms of recruiting is, even though we are focused on your athletic ability, we are focused on your academic ability, it is the character that ultimately counts. As you saw from those statistics earlier, there are, out of the amount of athletes out there, a very small percentage who do continue their careers in college. And so from a coach's perspective, they have the opportunity to pick a lot of people. And so there comes a point, especially if you're getting considered at a Division III, a Division II, a Division I level, that the talent to a point is quite similar. The academics to a point are pretty similar. And so at that point, when a coach is sitting there with the numbers and everything there, people look pretty similar on paper. It comes down to character. Are you a person that they can have on their team that's going to be a good leader? Are you a person on their team that's going to be respectful, that's going to fall in line with the team's culture? One of my good friends is a Division I coach, and he says he does the janitor test. I was like, what do you mean by the janitor test? He goes, oh, I go to the schools, I talk to the coaches, they're going to tell me whatever they want me to hear about their athletes. So, okay, great. I find the janitor. I'm like, why? He goes, there is not one person walking around the hallways of that school that knows the kids and knows what really goes on better than that janitor. And if that athlete, I hear, is a problem or is disrespectful or is like even rude to that individual who just kind of walks around and cleans up after people, like they are the subway of knowledge. And if I hear from that janitor that is amazing of an athlete or as amazing as a student as this person is, but he's attention seeking, all he does is he's like very selfish on the field, he's really disruptive, disrespectful, I want nothing to do with it no matter what their coach tells me. And so it's having that character of being a leader on the field, being a leader off the field, that when push comes to shove, when you're looking at some of these programs, academically, athletically, it's to a point pretty equal. And so if you are that individual who has strong character, you're nicest to that person who's the quietest in the room, who maybe the other students don't really talk with. If you're that person, it's really nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And so if you are that athlete that demonstrates really strong character, in addition to your athletic ability and in addition to that academic piece, you are going to have an edge over those other athletes who maybe their character isn't as strong. And so although this is a very much off the field, out of the classroom situation, it is something that coaches will look for, because as a college coach, that's their job. And so they get paid to have their team do well. They don't get paid to be a babysitter. And so when they are recruiting, they want to have an athlete on their team who's going to fit in with the culture, who's going to be good, and who's ultimately not going to be a reason for them to receive phone calls at midnight on a Saturday because their athletes are out doing all these things because they're not being respectful of the program and the culture and other people. They don't want that. They don't have time for that. So they're going to choose that athlete where the character is really strong. And so character ultimately really counts when you are in that recruiting process. And so my last rule for recruiting here is we really do, in this process, need to take a step back. You need to see the big picture. If you are an athlete who has the privilege, the opportunity to continue playing a sport that you enjoy in college, that is amazing. And it is an opportunity to continue playing your sport in college. But it's really not much beyond that. You, as an athlete in college, are also a student. You are there for a reason that is setting up your future larger than whatever it is academic or athletically. And so when you are looking for a school, you need to look at a program, you need to look at a school that there's more things on that campus that to you are important outside of just the team and the coach and the program and their record and all of those things, because you are going to live there for 4 years. You have to like it. You need to be walking out of there with a degree that's something that you're interested in. If you're going to a school that has nothing you're interested in besides a football program, well, what happens if you get injured? What happens if the coach changes? What happens? All of these things we can't control, and so you have to take a step back and choose the program that's right for you. A statistic that you will not find is the amount of athletes that transfer out of a school. The NCAA doesn't want you to know that. So you can try to find it, but you're not going to have much success finding it versus those charts that showed up here, which are readily available online with a simple Google. So many athletes that I work with on certain teams are very unhappy, and they are stressed, and they feel stuck, and they wind up transferring out, maybe to play at a different level, maybe to play for a different program or a different team, or simply it's like, I'm at this school and I like it, but it doesn't have at all what I'm interested in for my career, and so I'm going to graduate in 4 years with a degree in something I have no desire to do anything with. And so in that recruiting process, it's really important for you to take a step back. It has to be a good fit for you, athletically, for you to like the team, the coach, the culture, but there needs to be other things on that campus that are going to check off your boxes and that you are going to be happy there. You may decide after your sophomore year, you know what, this was fun, but I'm kind of over basketball right now. I'm over volleyball. I don't want to play anymore, but I love this school, so I'm going to stay here. I don't need to transfer. I don't need to make new friends because I picked a program in a university that I like. And so, I'll keep my friends that are on the team, but I'm going to choose to not play. And so it's really taking a step back and seeing the whole picture, that athletics is one piece of this college and recruiting process, but you are at school to gain more than just muscle and the accolades. You're there to ultimately get a degree. And so you need to like things and feel comfortable on that college campus that you are going to choose to live at for 4 years. And so these are just some 5 rules of recruiting, things to keep in mind as we start kicking off into some of the more school and financial piece. But I hope some of these things are helpful for you athletes to think about just in terms of as you are making these choices, which are really big choices. Did you have a question?
I was just going to ask, what is that?
What is it? Oh, I can't find it. No, this is just I'm trying to look for it, and it's obviously program specific, but I work on a number of campuses with a number of different teams, and I typically get to talk to those athletes that aren't very happy. And so I'm not sure. I still need to search and really try to see if I can find what that is, but it very much happens, and it's one that we don't talk about because we just assume, once we recruited, we're there. We get to put out the tweet on social media that we're committed somewhere and get the cool graphic and woo. But then you got to live it for the next 4 years.
6 months later, you find he's not there anymore. What happened?
Oh my goodness, I have an athlete right now who they were so stoked, went through the whole recruitment process and everything, and they just found out, and they made their decision based on a coach, and the coach is not going to be there in the fall. And so this kid who is now summer, about to go to that program, is now what?
So I want to say something to that. Oftentimes in situations like that, the new coach, if you're not one of his guys, he wants his people in that spot. And they can make it awfully uncomfortable for you and make it known, I'm not really feeling you. I don't really think you're good at whatever kind of psychological warfare. And kids end up quitting.
Yeah. The coach transfer is it's a big deal. But it happens.
A lot of shift happens when coaches leave.
Yep.
So you have to be sure that you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah. So those coach changes happen. But so I don't know if you all want to do questions at the end, or if anybody has any separate questions for me. We kind of hanging out, and we'll leave some of that time for the end. But I think I'm going to flip it over to Sam.
Actually, I'm gonna.
Nope. We're going SAT right now, and so I hope this was helpful. We'll let Andre come up for the stage change, but thanks for hanging out. I hope this was helpful. And hanging out with us.
I'm going to ask to follow her lead. Since parents are going to be taking a step back, I need you kids to move up front. We're going to have a informal
let's
chat.
move in so I can clear some chairs.
Physical separation.
Come. Bring your chair up. Come. You can sit right next to me. Come on.
You guys are strong. Good chair.
Young lady, you can sit right here in this red chair right here. And have a chat.
Wow, I mean, that's cute. Do I sit in the back? Can I sit in the back?
No, you can't. You sit right next to Nate.
Oh, you sit right next to me. Great. Good job.
Okay, so this is going to be an interactive, informal chat. Okay? And it's not going to be at all politically correct. All right? This is going to be what you need to hear. Some of you know me. Some of you have never met me before. My name is Rosalind Lucienne. The kids call me Miss Roz, or you can call me Mrs. Lucienne, but don't call me Rosalind because it's inappropriate. I am originally from Teaneck, New Jersey, North Jersey. I've lived here for 13 years. I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland for my undergraduate degrees in psychology and Africana studies, and I have a clinical and counseling master's degree from Chestnut Hill in Philadelphia. I have 3 children. They're quite exceptional, if I do say so myself. My daughter is a senior she's a junior at Trinity College in Connecticut. It's a highly selective liberal arts college. She's also a graduate of the George School, a boarding school in Bucks County. It's a Quaker boarding school. My second child, Jeremy, is a graduate of Choate Rosemary Hall, a boarding school in Connecticut, and he is now a freshman at the University of Connecticut. He is a full scholarship athlete in the honors program, majoring in mechanical engineering. And the baby of the bunch, who's pulling up the rear, is this young man right here. I'll protect his privacy and I won't say his name. But he's a stud athlete and a pretty smart kid. So, I'm around athletes all the time. Everybody's always talking about who got what offer, right? And sometimes I know some of these people who've gotten these offers, and I know to myself, that's not a committable offer. What do I mean by saying something's not a committable offer? Mohammed, you look like you know.
To be honest.
Louder.
To be honest, I don't really remember. That was like a year ago, but
Because you're committed to school now, so you forgot about those things?
Yeah, but based off what I know, like not a committable offer would be like getting an offer from a school, but in reality you wouldn't see yourself going to that school.
No, that's not what it is. So sometimes kids will they'll have interaction with the coach, whether the coach slides in their inbox in Twitter. They may come to the school and speak to the coach, evaluate their transcript. Those are typical things that happen in recruiting. But sometimes a kid may get an offer from one particular place, and then all of a sudden these other offers start popping up, right? Like, oh, this one offered them, that one offered them. But they've had no contact with that school at all. That school doesn't know their GPA. They don't know their SAT score, none of it. 9 times out of 10, if a kid with that particular profile were to call up said school and say, hey, I'm gonna commit, they're gonna say, oh, hold on a second, we gotta wait. Because recruiting is almost like online dating. No one wants you until someone else wants you, right? It's like you're not hot until someone else thinks you're hot. So you want to be sure that once you get to that point, you're in the best situation possible. So how many of you feel like your parents treat you like a kid? They're always on your back. Raise your hand if you'd like your parents to treat you like an adult. if you mean it, raise your hand high. If you wish your parents didn't treat you like a kid. Your hand's not up? So we all enjoy when our parents tell us what to do, govern our life. I'm gonna need you to be honest with me.
At times, like right now, like I like the balance. There's a balance between adult and
You
being a
like
kid.
that balance?
Yeah, it's
You
a
want to
fine
be
balance.
able to do what you want to do, but you want them to pay the bill.
Yeah. Right. You can say that.
Right?
You can
Right?
say that.
We're,
Oh, you
we're
don't
being
know what to do.
we're being honest. So
Yes.
so and I appreciate your honesty. Honesty is going to work best here. Okay. So the first grown-up decision you're going to make is where are we going to school. That's probably the biggest grown-up decision you're going to make is where you're going to go to school, and it's going to be 4 years of work, right? And school is not cheap. So there's some factors that go into that we need to start talking about. I'll talk about myself personally. I have a daughter who's a pretty smart kid, but she's a little on the lazy side. She had great athletic talent. Sidebar, we're Jamaican, like for track, that's like a big deal. She quit track. She said they wanted her to run in the cold. She wasn't really feeling that. It didn't make sense to me, but I had to respect her decision. So when college came, she was going to college just as a regular student, no athletic scholarship on the table at all, okay? So when, you're gonna hear a little bit more about FAFSA and the CSS profile a little bit down the line, but when decisions came out now, we visited a lot of schools, compared places. In her mind, she had a place that she wanted to be. It was near the beach, and it was really artsy-fartsy, and perfect place for my daughter in her mind. Well, that particular place was going to cost $60,000 more than another school that was giving her some merit aid. And in those particular schools, merit aid is rare, right? Because it's in highly selective schools, it's typically only need-based aid. That means it's based on how much your parents make. So my daughter was always on us saying, oh, I'm not a baby, I'm not a baby. No problem. Here's how much your dad and I have on it. You can go to school anywhere you'd like, provided you can figure out how to pay the bill. So you have some options. You can write an appeal letter. You can apply for some individual scholarships, right? But here's how much we have. But in my adult opinion, we don't pay an extra $60,000 to be next to the beach. You can drive up the road to the beach. She pissed and she moaned and she stuck out her bottom lip. Ultimately, my daughter is going to be a junior at the school that gave her $60,000 more because she wasn't able to find the money. Okay? First grown-up decision that she had to make, and it's working out for her. She's thriving in the classroom. She works as a writing tutor. She made the best choice for her because we have 3 children who are going to be in college at the same time. So we had to think with the end in mind. There's a book called 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. You must begin with the end in mind. You can't just be short-sighted and think for right now, okay? All right, so when you become a grown-up, one day you're gonna wanna buy a car, you're gonna wanna buy a house. What's the most important number in order to do those things? There's a number that's directly related to how rich or poor you are going to be. Does anybody know what that number is?
Credit score.
Can a parent raise their hand and tell me what that score is?
Credit score?
Credit score.
I got it wrong.
So, what does your credit score comprise of? Your credit score is basically a rating that 3 credit bureaus have made on how trustworthy are you for this money? How much money should we give you? Okay? What's a credit score comprised of? Adults in the room? Credit history, that's your payment on time.
Income. Your ability to pay back.
Yes, your ability to pay back. Let's see what else. How much new credit you've had. So if you have applied for 10 credit cards in the past 60 days, that's going to drop your score. because that's sending out a red flag saying, I need money, I need money, I need money. Okay? Credit score also includes how much you owe, how much debt you have. So why is that important to you? Because typically the first debt that students accumulate is student loans. So some kids think, oh, I don't have to pay this back right now. But who is the government-sanctioned loan shark? Parents, do you know who she is? Her first name's Sally, her last name's May, and she wants her money on time. Okay? Sally Mae is a mean, mean lady, and she will garnish your check. You will not. I know a man who is a doctor at Columbia University. He was not able to buy a house for his family because of how much student loans he had. One day you will be in that place. So how can we avoid being in a position where we're going to have an exorbitant amount of student loans? What's the solution? Does everybody have loans or no? Is that just part of being a grown-up? Everyone has student loans? I'm going to need you guys to open your mouth.
No.
So what's the alternative if we don't want to have a noose around our neck, a noose of debt? Is scholarship the only way?
I'm not talking athletic.
So what's the most important thing that we have to do? What is your currency as a student? What's the only
GPA.
thing you've got?
GPA and SAT score.
Your academic profile.
Yeah, academic profile.
Your GPA, your test scores, your currency as a teenager comes down to your test scores, your cumulative GPA. Actually, you talked about character earlier. All of that can be tanked by inappropriate online behavior. Nothing will make a scholarship go away faster than poor behavior online. But we're not gonna get on that too much. But what if you have a bunch of A's, but you have some BS classes? That's not going to count as much as a kid who might have a B+, but he's really challenging himself. So the rigor of your coursework, that's really important. Do you do any type of enrichment in the summertime? Any activities to advance your studies so that maybe you started off and you weren't in any honors classes, but you really tried to put in the extra effort, and now next year there's a raise in your academic profile, right? That means a lot. Your SAT is a culmination of about 10 years of academic work. Sometimes I speak to kids and I hear them say, oh, how are you doing in school? I'm passing. That's all you want out of life? Because if you're just passing, you and Sally Mae are going to be real good friends. Right? But if I told you that there was a way for you to get $200,000 to $300,000, and the only string attached was that you just had to do your work for 4 years in college, what would you prefer?
Do my work.
You guys are so quiet. If this was the draft, if this was the World Cup, there'd be a whole bunch of noise going on right now. Right? So when are you supposed to start thinking about college?
2nd grade.
I tell you what, you're damn straight. I had a friend, I'm first generation American. My parents are from the Caribbean, my mother was raised in England. I had a friend, Juliet Cowan, and her father, rest in peace, Dr. Cowan. I remember when I was in 10th grade, he said, Roz, where are you applying to college? I thought Dr. Cowan was crazy. I was like, I'm 15, what's he talking about? I don't know where I'm going, I don't know where I'm applying to college. I didn't realize that he'd been having those conversations with this kid from elementary school. She knew exactly the place. She'd been visiting colleges her whole life. They would go on vacation someplace and they just check out a school that happened to be in the area, right? We have two of the best schools in the nation in our backyard. How many people have spent time on their campuses, aside from a game, going to a game? Every single one of you needs to go and visit Lehigh and Lafayette. They're both classified as highly selective liberal arts colleges, but they're two completely different campuses. You need to know that information. Because say, for example, you're going to apply to a college, and they say, oh, very similar to Lafayette. How do you know what that means? You don't know what that means, right? Because you haven't visited the school that's right in your backyard. Okay. So, we've got two of the best schools in the nation in our backyard, and the average Lehigh Valley student cannot gain admission to them. What are the best schools in the Lehigh Valley? What do you think are the best? What are the top 3 schools in the Lehigh Valley?
High schools.
High schools.
Parkland. Parkland.
Parkland is number 3.
Whitehall.
Whitehall is not included, but I actually have their scores. Who else is the top school?
Saucon. Southern Lehigh.
The top 4 schools.
Emmaus.
Southern Lehigh, Emmaus, Parkland is right at Emmaus's heels, and Saucon, based on SAT scores. Who wants to take a guess at what that score is? Because I know people who are moving to Parkland because they think it's the best school district ever, right? So the SAT has 1,600 points.
Zach, you guess.
What's Saucon's average score?
Zach knows.
1400.
14.
Try again.
950.
Not that low.
1100.
T, you're up.
1050. Stop playing.
Saucon is 1056.
Who's number 1? Southern Lehigh.
Southern Lehigh's number 1. What's their score?
T knows.
1100.
1102.
Ooh, go ahead, T.
Okay? So the number 1 school in the Lehigh Valley, where if you hear people tell it, their chests are puffed out and they're telling you, my kid goes to Southern Lehigh. You know, I'm paying taxes for Southern Lehigh. You can't get into Lehigh with that score. That's important information for you to know, because I meet a lot of parents who think, oh, we're in this amazing district, my kid's gonna be fine. Maybe not, probably not. So it's very important for you to start this SAT process sooner rather than later, especially as an athlete, okay? Because I hear you guys all talking about camps, going to all these camps. What happens to the kid who goes to camp who doesn't have a solid SAT score and GPA?
Just getting offered.
Slow bucks.
No offer.
So, Andre had a video on Monday. What'd you talk about in the video, Andre?
A situation where a young man who I've poured a lot of time into performance-wise, talking to coaches for him, which I do for almost any of my athletes, been backwards for, is in a prime position, a position we've been waiting for, and he doesn't get an offer because his GPA is not where it needs to be. He's been around me for, on and off for like 18 months, so, everything from going to his house to pick him up, taking him on trips to school, feeding, to, everything I could in my time allowed it, everything except sitting down with the books,
So, the math, you can never run from the math, okay? There are only a limited number of seats. So a coach literally had an offer for this young man with a U.S. currency value of over $300,000 over 4 years. No loans. What do you think happened to that offer? Somebody else got it. Because do you think that this coach has time for you to say, oh, coach, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get better. oh no, you haven't done it up to now, right? Do you know what it means to hustle backwards?
No.
A lot of you guys make things far more difficult than it needs to be.
Okay.
Would you shortchange? Are you an athlete? Would you skip practices?
No.
If you skip practice, what would your coach do?
Yell at you.
That's all you do?
No, you get punished.
How would you get punished?
Probably run.
Would you be able to play if you were constantly flaking out on practice?
Probably not.
What would happen at your school if you didn't show up to practice?
You won't play.
You won't. You just plain old won't play.
Wait a minute. Do you actually not know, or are you trying to get skipped over?
I said they won't play.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw this.
Oh.
Plus his whisper. Okay.
So, what you guys want to be treated like young adults, so we need to have some real conversations. Because if your coach told you, if you were in practice and your coach told you you were stinking up the joint, if your coach told you you suck, how many of you heard a coach tell someone that they suck, that they're not working hard enough? Is that uncommon? You wouldn't even blink. You know what you do? If you heard the coach lay into this one, you'd make sure when it was your time to do that rep that you didn't make the mistake that that one did. Am I lying?
No.
Why are you all playing with your schoolwork?
Valid question.
Is an athletic scholarship the only way to get out of college without your parents paying for it? No, because highly selective colleges, most of them are all need-based. That means it's based on your parents' income. So there are a lot of people who feel like, oh, I got to get a scholarship because my parents don't have a lot of money. How else can I go? Nonsense. Lehigh costs over $70,000 a year. You don't even have to be an athlete. But if you have the test score and the GPA, you can go to Lehigh for free. Brown University just instituted a no-loan policy. So students do not have to take out a Stafford loan, which is a smaller loan that kids take each year that has a maximum on it. So typically you wouldn't graduate with more than about $20,000 worth of debt. So if your tuition cumulatively is like bucking on $300,000, $20,000 versus that much, not so bad a deal, right? What is the average SAT score for Lehigh University?
1350.
You're like right in there. So the reading and writing section at Lehigh, the average is between 590 to 680. The math section, 640 to 740. There is no reason that if you prep, you cannot have 600 points on both sides. You do not need to be a genius. You do not need to be a rocket scientist. You have to put in the work. The SAT is not something that you can cram for. The sooner that you begin practice, the better it is. Half of the test is content. The other half is knowing how to take the test. There are 4 parts to the test, except for the essay. There's the reading and writing, and then there's reading, and then there's writing and language. And then on the math side, there's 20 questions that are non-calculator, 52 questions calculator. You know what's on the test. The way that my prep is designed, we zero in exactly on what it is that you're not learning, right? Because you got a full schedule. You got to maintain your grades. You have to do your training, right? There's only so many hours in the day. But the type of students that I see when I come in here myself to work out, I say if they gave half that effort to their SAT, these kids could save themselves a lot of headache. So we only have a couple minutes left. I'm going to let Muhammad speak a little bit about his recruiting process. What was your SAT score?
My super score is 1370.
1370. After you got your 1370, what happened?
I got a good amount of offers from some very good academic
Don't be
schools.
shy. Say the names.
To be honest, I don't. Penn, Yale, Columbia, Brown, Navy, Delaware, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Lehigh, and Colgate.
So you had choices about where you wanted to go, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I talk to kids and I say, where do you want to go to college? Whoever offers me. What? You're going to live there for 4 years? And would you pick a spouse, a boyfriend, or a girlfriend that way? Whoever says yes? You would never do that. How are you going to do that with your life? Okay? A lot of people are so focused on the offer, the offer, the offer. What you guys need to understand is you want to get to and through college and be successful when you get there. My son is at UConn. His first week at school, someone said, Jeremy, you want to make some money? Someone tried to pay him to write their paper. He was like, no. Because somewhere along the line, someone was cutting corners with that kid, and he developed poor habits. I guarantee you that person is not going to be there in 2 years. And you want to keep your offer because I guarantee you there's somebody who's nipping at your heels. I've seen it happen already because your offers aren't for 4 years. I hope you know that. That's a year by year thing because these coaches are making far too much money to let their salary, their job security, rely on a kid who's stinking up the joint in the classroom. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. In Pennsylvania, the PIAA, you can play if you're failing 2 classes. Muhammad, can you play at UPenn if you're failing 2 classes?
Can't play if you're failing 1. You can't.
Thank you. So, you know, I talk to my kids and my bonus babies about not being used, right? Fair exchange is no robbery. Every school wants a winning record, right? Everybody wants to say, oh, we're the champions at this, we're the champions at that. But are you getting something out of it, right? At any given point, you can have a career-ending injury. But if you've been doing it in the classroom, it doesn't matter because you'll be good regardless. Okay? I see kids end up, there's some schools in the Lehigh Valley where you'll take a class for just a semester. So conceivably, you can have not had math for a whole year, but you've got this test to take. If you're not doing any prep, how are you going to be ready for that? Would you not go to practice for a whole month and think that you're going to start in a varsity game? No such, you would laugh at someone who thought that that would happen, right? So you've really, really got to change your mindset. And I might be preaching to the choir right now. You guys need to start to hold your peers accountable. You really, really do. You win as a team and you lose as a team. And there's enough success for all of you to thrive and succeed. But this complacency and this sense of good enough is good enough that I see in a lot of these schools around here, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not. It's not. And if you don't want to be a 30-year-old on your parents' couch, you have to have a shift in your mindset. Because while you might be the man or the woman at your school and everybody thinks, oh, so-and-so is great, guess what? I just left a camp on Sunday. Everybody was the man from their school. What else do you have? My husband was a D1 athlete. And my husband played basketball at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I worked in the basketball office. You don't know how many guys I saw who were on full scholarship, who quit because they couldn't deal just with not being number 1 anymore. You guys have to develop more fortitude than that, and it's going to start with how you prepare for this test. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you? So what is your academic currency?
SAT. Test scores and GPA.
Academic profile.
Academic
Yeah.
profile.
So your academic profile consists of test scores, GPA, your resume, your work ethic,
Your social medias.
your character, your social media. So even if you think, oh, I didn't post it, don't like it, don't retweet it, because coaches have told me that they go through everything. They see who you're friends with, what you comment where, what you allow people to say on your page. I don't care if you think it's private. I don't care if you think Snapchat disappears. The internet is a permanent tattoo. And a lot of these kids are literally taking a match and dropping it on a pile of money and up in smoke. Goes. So last summer, I did an SAT class for athletes. Jamal was one of the students in my class, and he was going into his junior year. He wasn't happy with where he was testing, and he decided that he was going to put in time. Typically, juniors take their SAT for the first time in March of their junior year. Jamal, when did you take your SAT? December of his junior year. Jamal took his SAT. Jamal, what did you get on your SAT?
1510.
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't hear you say.
1510.
A 1510?
Yes.
And what happened afterwards?
A bunch of offers.
Can you be a little more specific?
UPenn, Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Cincinnati, Army, Navy, Air Force, Brown, Cornell.
You know why? Because his credit score is high. Because guess what? You don't even have to be the best football player, right? You can be a nice football player, but academically, what you bring to the table and what you represent for that coach, Jamal's not going to be anybody's headache. Muhammad's not going to be anybody's headache. They're not going to have to run after them to do their work because they've already developed good habits that it's going to continue. There's a West Indian saying, you practice at home, you do abroad. If you can't get it done when you're home with your mother and father, what do you think is going to happen when you're at college and nobody's going to make you go to class? Okay? So the last thing I'm going to end with is there's something that teachers, educators know called the summer slide. And that's when you take 3 months off of school. And when you go back to school in September, sometimes it's October before kids' brains are working again. You know how you prevent the summer slide? Work in the summertime. Do you guys take off the summer training?
No.
You would never take 3 months off from training. So why are you doing it with your schoolwork? So, I'm here to help you. Just holler at me.
Thanks.
Cool. Never too old to learn a new trick. So I didn't know when I heard about when I first met Roz. There's like things you can do even though your GPA might suck, like summer corrective stuff and taking extra classes. So like I didn't know you could do those.
So
things
for
in high
example,
school.
Nate, what are you doing this summer?
Dang, Nate.
I'm taking trig right now.
Why? Because you failed trig?
No.
Nate didn't fail anything.
I want to get. I wanted to take pre-calc, so in order for me to take pre-calc, I had to take trigonometry.
How proactive.
But you could be sleeping in the summertime.
I could, but I decided that that route wasn't for me.
And what's your average in this summer school class?
97.
Say that again.
Where are you taking trig at?
At Becca.
Becca.
Oh, they're off right? That's awesome. All right.
You do what you have to, so you can do what you want to.
Hey, tell them. Last but not least, money part. All right. I think Roz said something around 300 grand as a full ride nowadays. Back in my day, it was somewhere around $250,000. So how do we come up with all these funds? Sam is here to tell you all that. Where do we all go? What?
See you guys.
Do you need this?
There you go, Chad. Cash your checks. I'm good.
Cool. So Zach's got practice at 7 right down the road, and it's 6:40.
All right, well, we will be finished at 7, except for Q&A, as you wish. But excited to talk about this. This symposium is right on in terms of hitting all the different highlights, and I love being able to kind of clean up here in terms of talking about the money, because Miss Roslyn, or not just Roslyn, anyway, Miss Roslyn.
Adults can call me Roslyn.
I just
That's
turned
not
40,
nice.
so I'm all set. But Roslyn has talked about one of the biggest ways to make money, or to earn your college tuition, that I think is on most people's radars, is I want to be able to get that scholarship. And a lot of times, though, what you're going to find in a financial aid award is going to be a combination of merit aid based on what you're doing in the classroom or with the SAT, and then financial aid as well. So I work a lot with both. I don't do the SAT prep side as well, but I like helping families find colleges that are going to be more likely to give you merit aid. And usually there are some of those really selective ones because they've got the endowments. It's a virtuous cycle over the years of graduating people who are really successful, who give money back to the school so they can give more money to kids who earn it and really can get into it. So, but what I like talking about is this idea of winning the college funding game, because it really is. So what I kind of have on the front here is I want to teach you some of the rules. Okay, and if you haven't gone through this process before, it can be a lot. And so one thing that's I'm happy to do after this evening is set up a time and really just kind of take the temperature, give you a snapshot of maybe what you should be facing, some questions you might have for your own specific situation. I'm going to go kind of big picture. I love what Megan talked about before. Take that big picture, step back. Let's find out how we can win this game. So the question, a question I like to have for students, but for families as well, is like, why is going to college important for you? Hannah, why go to college?
To get a degree.
To get a degree, why? Because degrees are fun?
To get a job.
To get a job? Okay, all right. So for you, going to college particularly has a connection to a job that you want to aspire to, right? Right. Your name? Deshaun. Deshaun, right? Okay, so for you, why just go to school? Just like move out?
Better in the future.
Okay. Yeah. I saw the other day, it's purely PR, but I got an email from a college, and it said, college, 4 years of self-improvement. I thought, man, if that were actually the case, that'd be awesome. If you go into it thinking that that's going to be it for you, then that will be. Yeah, absolutely, to improve yourself. But if you don't know that part, like, why are you even going? For me, a big reason and why I love having students involved in this part is because if you take ownership of this process, you're going to get ROI. You're going to get a return on your investment because you're going to know why you're in on it. So just know that answer for yourself. And then one thing I think is really important as well is knowing what in particular are you looking for in a school. Okay. So real quick, each of you, if you would, just rank 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the factors that are important to you on that those lines. So campus life, like what's going on the size of the school, location, so on. Academics, I kind of hope it's somewhere in the top couple, but some people it's not. You're talking about your daughter before, but I just want to be near the beach. Like that's a campus life. Academics, opportunities. What do I get to do because I go to this school in particular? It's because they get to play sports. They have really good internship programs. Whatever it is. And then finances. How are my finances when I get out in terms of my job prospects? How are my finances when I get out in terms of my college debt? So those are some factors as well. One fun thing as well for parents and kids is to compare your list of order and ranking and see where are my priorities as a parent, where are my child's priorities. It's just kind of good to know. So the big thing that drives me, I actually started in college funding from College Selection, a company I own called My College Life Coach, and helping people find the right fit. But more and more, I kept running into the money and finding that because I wasn't dealing with the money specifically, I was really not doing the families I worked with a service. And so I just dug deep into this. So I'm a certified college funding specialist, and I now work almost exclusively with families to try to help them figure out the cash part of this. Because you can find a great fit school, and either because of grades or because of your financial situation, whatever, not be able to afford it, and you were talking before about the doctor from Columbia, right? There's an acquaintance of mine who lives in the Lehigh Valley. She's a chiropractor. She's $260,000 in debt, and she's not making that as a chiropractor. So she's going to change jobs to try to get a better situation for her debt. Not because she doesn't like her current job; she loves it. She's going to take a job she doesn't like to pay off debt that she didn't have any concept of going into this thing. So a lot of this is education for the parents. I love having kids sit in on this too, just so that they appreciate your parents more, because they know what's going on with this whole thing. So, keeping score. Just quick show of hands on where everybody is in this process. Who here is heading into their junior year? Heading into senior year. Okay, all right, awesome. That's good to know what's going on for that. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So, and for parents, for whom of you is this your first kid going in? Yes? Second? Okay, and you said second as well. Okay, cool. All right, so just a little bit of education and some things to be aware of. So the FAFSA, the date for you to the earliest you can complete your FAFSA this coming fall, if your child is a senior, this is going to be in October. It's going to be October 1, and that's the free application for federal student aid. Okay, the FAFSA free application for federal student aid. As Rosalind mentioned before, you can get up to $27,000 in what's used to be Stafford, now it's direct loans to help throughout college. They're kind of the more attractive loans if you need them because they're low interest. I'm not a big fan of loans myself, but if you need them, the FAFSA is one way to access them. The FAFSA is going to help you generate your expected family contribution. That's the EFC, your expected family contribution. That's going to be the minimum in terms of financial aid that a school is going to offer you. Okay, that's going to be what helps establish your need. One thing that I like to do, and this is part of the strategy part for as far as what I offer, is there are actually ways. There's 163 legal ways to reduce your expected family contribution. Right? If you didn't know that, we should talk. And there are some that actually, my goal is to have you be in better shape when your kid's out than you are right now. So there's some things that we can talk about through that. But your EFC, the expected family contribution, is going to be what the government thinks you can afford for college. When your first kid went through, were you really excited about your EFC? And you're like, the government gets me. Like, we're like this. Or was it a little higher than you thought it was going to be? Yeah. No one is happy. I met with a client last night. He's like, how am I, like, I don't have an extra $2,000 a year. It was $25K. I don't have an extra $2,000 a month that I happen to not be using. These numbers are crazy. And so I've never seen anybody be happy about what their EFC is, but we can work on it. The CSS profile is just basically the private school FAFSA. All right, if you're going to go to schools like Lehigh, Lafayette, they're going to ask you, it's going to feel a little more like a tax audit. They're going to ask you a lot of questions.
Like an assault?
Yes, that's right. It's an invasion of privacy.
Oh my
These
God.
are the schools, though, that are going to have the potential to offer you the most aid. They just want to give it where credit's due in that way. COAs and cost of attendance. It's the only thing that a school publishes that's actually helpful and accurate on their website about finances. The cost of attendance. They don't just give you the tuition; they give you cost of attendance, tuition, room and board, student fees, travel expenses. Your cost of attendance minus your EFC is what gives you your need. Okay, so if you don't know the rules of the game, like my son right now is 8. He's just starting to learn. He's at a soccer camp this week, and he has some idea what soccer looks like, but by day 3, he's like, okay, I have a better sense now. Like, I know the goal thing, where that's, like, I'm getting the basics, right? And if you don't know the basics, man, you're going to get smoked in this game. And if you're going through this for a kid and you're going to sit down and you're going to file the FAFSA and you've never had an EFC calculation before, if you never sat down with somebody and said, hey, can I have some strategies around this thing? You're going to put those numbers in, and that's going to be it for a year. You're not going to realize sometimes we work with students and families, and it's not until their second kid they realize, oh my word, I have been saving $5,000 a year on this with a particular strategy, and that's a tough place to be. So here's the strategy, all right? So one is try to reduce your expected family contribution. All right, if your high school grad year is 2020, your FAFSA app date is October 2019, and the tax year you're going to use is 2018. Pretty easy, just walk back one each year. The FAFSA calculates 2 things that fit into it. Your tax year and your assets on the day that you file. Okay? That includes 529s. 529s are included as a parent asset. So if you've done a great job saving up using a 529, it's going to get counted against you in the EFC, which is incredibly frustrating. But that is what it is. If your high school graduation year is 2019, your FAFSA app date is October of 2018, and it's using 2017's tax year. All right? So the next thing you want to do is identify schools who play by the rules. Okay? I call these, and this is something I can run for you, a college generosity report. All right? You want to find schools that are going to give you the most financial aid possible. Okay? Some schools are really generous. Some schools are really not. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but I can run some reports for you and show you which schools are going to be more likely to give you the most amount of that aid. Some schools say, actually, I'm going to show you that in a second. So what's included in your financial aid award? Anybody know? Parents who've gotten a financial aid award before? Yes.
School aid.
Yep.
Which can be either scholarship or need-based aid.
Yep.
Parental contribution. Some have a student contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Work study and loans.
Yep. Generalized. You got 3 categories there. You've got free money, work study, and loans. When I think financial aid, I don't really think about loans. I don't think it's very helpful. However, schools will include loans in your college funding. So again, we want to go back to which of the schools are going to be really, really generous with this. Then we talk about, again, maximizing your merit aid. This is a really, really simplified strategy. We're going to get into your specific situation when, if you would like to speak further. But maximize your merit aid. All right, Rosalind already talked about one. What's one of the ways you can do your merit aid? What's something that helps?
Your academic currency.
Academics, right? And academics, activities, and athletics. Those are 3 ways to bump your merit aid. Okay? Usually a combination of them is going to help. You're going to find a lot of times, and this will help a lot even with acceptance to some of these schools. I went to Bucknell, and I have written letters of recommendation for some of my students as they're going in, and I get letters back that really make me try to figure out how in the world I got in there, because the academic standards are ridiculous. But that one of the letters that wrote back to me said, "Hey, thanks a lot. Your candidate's really nice." She's not getting in. But they said after we give away the spots for basketball, obviously, somewhat football, they're okay. After we give away spots for the orchestra, after we give away spots for these particular things, we only really accept 5%. Our acceptance rate for the general population without something that's different, like activities, not just athletics, but activities as well, is 5%. It's ridiculous. So there's got to be something that helps you stand out. A lot of you guys are here working with Andre, because that's going to be one of those things that helps you stand out. The other part of working with Rosalind is going to be the ability to do your SAT. Working with Megan to make sure that your head's right so you perform on the field. You've got all these things that are working together. Those things can really help. All right. So which is the more expensive school? Let's say Muhlenberg or Penn State? Who would do Muhlenberg? All right, give me a bulk, any idea roughly what they're?
It's
around 60K, all right? Penn State's around 35, right? So if your family's in a situation you're like, look, we don't have a lot of money, why would you even apply to Muhlenberg? Flip it over. Sorry, dude. It's inside, yep, right on the left. No, I'm sorry, you're right. You're right then, and then flip it over. Yep. If you look at generosity, this is one of the things I really want to open up some of your thought process on. More expensive schools, very often, are more generous. If you walk down this chart, the thing that I have to recommend for you guys as you're entering this process is don't shop sticker price. Shop the criteria you're looking for and where you think you can perform at a high level. Because a school like Muhlenberg, let's pretend that your expected family contribution before we meet is 22K. All right, we'll try to get that down to 15. the need then, let's say that your need at Penn State is 9, your need at Muhlenberg is 37. Penn State, the free money, Penn State only gives you $5,000 in free money. Muhlenberg gives you 33. All of a sudden, Muhlenberg and Penn State, Muhlenberg's actually cheaper. Okay, so when you go through this process, you're doing college selection, don't go off that sticker price until you really know what your EFC looks like and which schools are going to be the most generous. All right. So another school, Lancaster, Franklin Marshall, great academic school. They meet 100% of need. Right. They're right up there. They're close to Brown and Penn. These guys that are going to say we're going to give you almost everything in free money. All right. As one of my buddies jokes, Penn State's still paying off lawsuits. They don't have enough money to be financially generous. But anyway, so
I like that joke.
yeah, it's good. So anyway, so that's what I want to just kind of open your eyes to some of these things. You can control this process more than you think. A lot of times you're throwing darts in the dark, pardon me. You're like, I hope this, when I turn the lights, I hope I'm happy with what I got. And that's how a lot of people are approaching the SAT, right? I'm going to show up on a Saturday morning and, man, I hope I knock something out of the park. You know what? Forget it. All right, anyway, so so what do you need to figure out? Some next steps for you. Figuring out how do you win this game. You're looking at which schools will give me the best shot at reaching my life goals, right? You go back to the top of that previous page. Here's what I want out of academics. Here's what I want out of campus life, and put them in priority. How generous are my top tier schools, the ones that I really want to go to? So if you shoot me an email, we can set up a time. I'll give you what I call the college generosity report, which is your top six schools. Let's see how generous they are. See if they want to play ball financially, and then you could backfill that with a merit. So that's the most generous there. With the general part, we can look as well, and then we can start looking at the merit aid. And then we really sit down. Let's boil that number down as low as we possibly can get it. Parents, then we say, all right, well, how are we going to pay this thing? Then we start really talking strategy specifically. So you're going to come to the big picture piece. You're going to go to big open gym. And then you're going to be able to start playing some games. And we keep taking steps to make it more and more personal. Then you hire someone like Andre who says, all right, come up with a plan for me. That's really where I can help you out. So anyway. Hopefully you learned a couple things just about this process. Those of you who are about to be seniors, file the FAFSA in October. If you don't have a good sense about what the FAFSA is going to look like for you, I highly recommend giving me a shout for that. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just say one last
Shoot.
thing as a
Absolutely.
vet?
Yeah.
When you start to do the CSS profile, don't try to take it all at one time. Take it in little pieces. Start on a Sunday with the hope of finishing on Saturday, and just do a little bit each day and go back. Because sometimes we get discouraged, and we're like, oh my God, all these questions. But there's no goal that is not attainable if you break it down into measurable pieces.
Absolutely. Totally. And don't be afraid to ask for help, right? I was talking with a friend yesterday. I said, I'm not a big ask for help guy, but
but everybody else should.
But everybody else should be. It's like coaching 101. Do as I say, not as I do. But I made me realize that your willingness to ask for help shows you how important this thing is to you, right? And that's whatever the process is, whatever is important enough, you need to ask for help for. So, all right, last thing, if you would, this, I don't know, tangerine sheet. If you could just take a minute and fill it out, and if you want to connect with any of us, there's some checks down at the bottom. But we really want to make these better. This is 2 out of 3, at least for the summer, for these symposia, and I want to be able to keep improving. So if you would just fill those out, hand those to Dre on your way out, and as Megan said, we'll be around to answer questions if you need anything. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry. So, any questions, comments?
We don't need you, Andre, all right? We already got it.
In closing, thank you so much for coming out in the summer to talk about school and your future. Just thinking hopefully this gave you some vision. I felt like talked about your top 6 schools and you didn't even know you're supposed to have 6 schools, or what Muhlenberg gives out versus Penn State, or how the SAT helps, or the people that brag about how dope their SATs are. It's really
There's something I
not that
forgot
hard.
to tell you guys. Homework. Go home tonight. Make a list of 12 schools, first 12 schools that pop in your mind, whatever reason you like them, I don't care. And then find out what's the average SAT and the average GPA. It's a very good exercise.
And then also learn the sliding scale right now because you're all athletes and how that helps you. In closing, this is about kind of just building the village. So, your athletics, your academics, the mental aspect, the financial aspect, all this stuff is so important. Not one of us could handle all of it. So there's 4 people here giving up their time to help you out and give you some info. We'll be here for another 20 minutes. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you got to run the practice. If nothing else, give yourself a round and your parents, somebody bring you out. And thank you so much.
I would like to thank you for being one of the very few coaches in the area I can count on one hand and have fingers left over who puts the students' needs first always.
It's my
As a mother of athletes, I appreciate that because unfortunately the bar has been set entirely too low and then it bites them in the ass.
Trying to raise that thing up. Cool. All right.
Jeremy told my husband yesterday that we're going to take two summer classes. So one of the professors gave us an assignment, a paper due the next day, a 4-page paper. He said that the other guys were like, 4 pages? Oh my, he said they were literally like panicking. And so I did it in an hour. He's like, so fall a senior year, you have to worry about that. It's an unnecessary burden. Don't kick, I said, if you're kicking the can down the road and you need help, you're in the, I said, you want to maximize this. You know Joe Young, he was a quarterback. He graduated last year. So Joe was one of my students last year. He was teaching here at my son's boarding school. As amazing of an athlete as Joe was, he was an athlete of the year for coordinating health. Joe had one. And I tell kids, if Joe only had one, what does that mean for you? You understand? You know how many times Joe took lessons? But it wasn't until last summer when he started to do it that he started to see it. Because we're focused in on what is in your feedback. All right, we're going to go to the team. We're going to work specifically on that. And then when I speak, I tell them, get out of it what you put into it. It's not magic. After this lesson, I send you to these websites to tell you practice this, practice this, practice this, practice. If you do it, you will see the results. But a little bit over a long period of time is the best reps we learn. And then also, in order to learn the content that you need, truthfully, you need to be in geometry for life. Geometry, and then algebra, and then pre-calc. There's some kids going into their junior year who are only just starting to take geometry. So half of the steps, you don't even know. So they're taking the practice test and they get frustrated and discouraged and even learn the content. So that's why I tell parents, don't just let someone make a kid's schedule and decide. You need to know what's going on. And everyone's saying, oh, they're fine, they're fine. No, they're not fine. My son goes to that.
Right, the ratio balance.
You would be awesome, especially down the road. If we're going to sacrifice, you're going to do work. It blows my mind.
I think it's, I love the fact that there's more communicating with one person.
I don't get me wrong. There's a place in the world for everything. However, I'm not paying private school tuition for you to go there. You could have done that for free. But no one wants to have these uncomfortable conversations. But then, parents are like, oh my God, they don't know how to work. They dropped out. Well, you kept coddling them and you didn't want to have any tough conversations, so here you go.
So what should I get in touch with you?
Did I give you my card? So you can email me.
Okay.
And then we can set up a time. I've been doing assessments here, but we have to have them yesterday. So if you email me tonight, I'll let you know the next time I'm going to have the SAT assessment. So that you can come, do that whole solo for 3 hours. Do that, score it, see where his weaknesses are. I'm starting a class with reading, writing, verbal stuff. The second week of July. Because we can get input on that, and then we can start doing some one-on-one stuff. All right? Thank you. Very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. We're gonna be good friends.
No problem. Sorry, I couldn't work it out physically.